NLCB comes, is there a problem in education in America? And if there is, what do you see the problem is? Because there's a lot of people, including those folks, who think that the answer are these bizarre things, right? But what is the problem?
That's a great question. I think poverty is a huge problem.
Okay.
That inequality is a huge problem.
And the teachers are going to fix that.
Well, that's what the teachers have been tasked to fix that with, increasingly the outcomes, yeah, and less support. No school nurses, no libraries are getting cut. The things programs that keep kids in school, after school programs, sports programs, drama programs, music programs are all getting slashed. Testing gets, accountability and outcomes. Yeah. So.
Sure.
When I was in graduate school, I had a teacher who forthrightly said that he taught to the top 10% of the class. Having been a teacher at that point in my life, that really pissed me off, because the top 10% of the class was going to get it if he stayed home and watched the soaps. It seems to me that the core idea behind No Child Left Behind is trying to provide a voice for the bottom 10%. The people who don't show up at high school reunions because they're generally failures. The people who won't talk to you about their favorite teacher because they dropped out early and they really hated all their teachers. The core heart of the No Child Left Behind intuition is we must somehow or other require the education system to deal with and give appropriate attention to the bottom 10%. Schools that have gone through mandatory reorganization under NCLB, that's the focus. And fairly often the technique is to try and pick up failing students before they are fall down dead failing early on in the failure process and bring to bear teacher resources at an earlier stage of failure, and then increase the allocation of resources as if that doesn't cut it. I thought NCLB was the worst bit of legislation in the history of education until I was involved in a couple of mandatory restructuring situations and saw that it really is possible to focus on the bottom 10%. Unfortunately, the damage that the legislation has done to the rest of the education system, it seems to me far outweighs that. But there is a core of intuition behind No Child.
It's been a disaster, by and large. There are some really good charter schools, but by and large, it's been a disaster, and at the expense of a lot of taxpayers. So instead of stepping back and saying, okay, wait a minute, early enough to say what's working here and what's not, the charter school movement and the privatization movement goes full speed ahead. And that's, anyway, Susan, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I was going to say one thing. I think that idea is good. It's just the implementation hasn't always been so great. And we have to look at what we're doing. Our students who aren't succeeding, which is essentially based on test scores at this point is what people tend to focus on. It's like the rates of poverty are unbelievable, okay? And English language learners, where's the resources for them? So we're not providing those resources. What we'll often provide is, well, maybe it's a company, maybe Catapult Learning comes in and, they get paid $190 an hour to tutor kids after schools, in our Title I schools. Well, okay, the extra help, sure, that can be great, but there's a lot of variation in what that is. Sometimes it's just a worksheet. So, and extra resources, that might come through these special programs can be great. I mean, we've had some schools that receive some special grants, right? And with those resources, like school improvement grants, I believe, and the resources have been wonderful. Schools have been able to do some great things with extra resources. The problem is, those are grants. Yep. So they're not sustainable. And all kids need to be succeeding. So we definitely need to focus on the kids who aren't. And I'd like to think of it more than just being test scores. And focusing attention and resources, that's great. And we also have to remember, all kids, wherever they're at, whatever their starting point. But yeah, great idea, perhaps bad implementation. I noticed that with, I think you were referring to proficiency-based learning in the play. which we don't quite have here in Portland yet, but it seems to be where the state is going. Great idea that all kids will move at their own level. The implementation, though, if you don't have enough teachers and resources to help them move at their own level, could be quite a different outcome.